Jesus H. Christ. Okay. I love you enough to ask you again. Would you kill for me? Oh, it's that time. Alright, don't fucking... There we go. Oh, I'm blurry. That's fun. Yo. Over here, camera. Alright. Something's up. Lord, just when I thought I got the whole fucking thing fixed up. There we go. Are we in focus? Yeah. Well, now my eyes aren't in fucking focus. Help me out here. I can't see if I'm in focus or not. I need the audience to tell me. I don't have my fucking iPad. I don't look in focus. Okay, yeah, that's in focus. Ugh. All right. So, yeah, it's just my eyes that are bleary, not the rest of everything here. Good God Almighty. Spade and Whitey. Yeah, I miss the term spade. Maybe we can bring it back in a non-racist context. What do y'all think? All right, yes, hello. I'm Zach ZYZ. Motherfuckers can't find me. That's what I'd say if this were a rap contest, but actually it's me editing a novel. Believe it or fucking not. Ugh. All right, let me pull up the restream chat on this whole thing. We got a lot of people watching today. I don't know what it is, but everybody's up at early in the morning on a Friday. And shout outs to you. I see Logic up in the chat. I see Spiffy Wah. Wait, who's this guy? You look like that guy who says the N-word. And by N-word, I assume you mean the word nigger. And yeah, like from time to time, I will say any kind of words. I don't feel that words are as important as the fucking context in which they're said. Like that word has no power in that context. If I were to be shouting it at a Puerto Rican woman in, on the street, she would be like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" I'm clearly not. And were I to be shouting it at a white person, they would be happy. They'd be like, "Yeah, finally, some respect." So yeah, I don't subscribe to the you can't say those words. Like you can say whatever the fuck you want. People are gonna judge you for it. Just pay the cost. I'm willing to pay the toll to say whatever the fuck I want. And most of the people that I hang out with are people who also don't give a fuck. So there you have it. But yeah, I don't like to just throw it around when it's not funny. So yeah, just to clarify on some of the salty language that you will hear in here. I don't think the word nigger appears in this book at all. But it's definitely appeared in some of my other books. And yeah, like the thing about having a writing stream is you need to be free to express any concept that you want to have. So that's how it is. All right, let me see some of these chats because they're coming in. Sego64, Search Giorna. I'm from there. Huh. Yeah, so Logic says if you don't say the word, you'll give it power. I kind of agree. I'm not a big fan of the idea that certain people to get to decide which words are said and which words are not said. Because generally the people doing the deciding are not the people that the word is even about or whatever. It's somebody else that's acting as the arbiter of what you can and cannot say. And as a consequence, if you have this policy, just get prepared to get banned off of fucking Twitch or YouTube or whatever. It's just a word, Ultimately, I've talked about this previously, but we should just have some kind of test, like a litmus test, as to whether or not people are racist so that we can have some objectifiable evidence. And I feel pretty confident that I would pass said test. But I guess, I don't know. This is way the fuck out of... so people are asking if that's civil in the Twitch chat. He wanted us to check out Girona. Oh, shout outs to... yeah, the Streamlabs thing is not finally fucking saying the shit that I want it to. Well, I want to see where Girona is. I've never been there before. Oh, it's from Spain, España. I've never been to Spain in all my life. Oh, he speaks Catalan, probably. Neat. Well, that's kind of cool. Here, let's... fucking Apple made it so there. So this whole region of Spain right here, including old Barcelona and so forth, within the next 10 or 15 years, probably won't be a part of Spain any longer, because the Catalan people are definitely going to break away and form an independent country. It's actually really, the Brexit shit has really got me thinking about what Europe is going to look like in the next 20 or 30 years. And a lot of people are saying it's kind of a foregone conclusion that Scotland is going to have another independence referendum. And most likely, let's roll up to Scotland, because I don't really give a shit about Girona. So way up here in jolly old Scotland. Scotland. Ugh. Oh, I've never been to the Faroe Islands. Here's old Edinburgh. But anyhow, so you're going to have Scotland outside of the UK. So if you don't have Scotland and you don't have Ireland, because they're thinking that also Northern Ireland, they're going to try and break away again. There's less support for that. What the fuck do you have? How united is your kingdom? It's just fucking England and Wales? That's not a united kingdom. Wales is like the trailer park of Europe. Shout outs to Wales. And Jason Bandy, who lives in a gypsy caravan within said trailer. Okay, well, that's not what this stream is all about. Politics and so forth. Let me take a gander at all these people chatting. They're ready to go. Catalonia pulls the whole country's economic weight. Independence is inevitable. Yes, exactly like North and South Sudan. Also because of the people in there. Void comp for racism. Yeah, man, I should do like some thinking about this. But really, I feel... Well, the problem is that you would probably do it through like a survey. Like a 10 or 15 question survey or something like that. And people are so unreliable when they're self-reporting on surveys. There's a lot to think about. But unfortunately, it has zero to do with the story we're talking about today. Because I think there are no race relations in GRAVID whatsoever. The story is set in northern Maine. And everybody in it is just as white as milk. Like the girl's family. They're all from Finland. Which, I don't know. Finland is kind of like a weird culturally and ethnically. But I assume most people would slap that old white sticker on there. But I digress. So yeah, the interesting things in this particular book are going to be some of the views of gender and some of the views on what really constitutes an individual and how much autonomy people really have, and sort of just delving into how responsible people really are when they're like 16, 17 years old. It's like kids, but without telly. R.I.P. What's a fucking Mountain Dew? I didn't want a goddamn Mountain Dew. I wanted water. I didn't buy this Mountain Dew. I don't know why it's in my fucking refrigerator. So today, I've got more of Nitro's cold brew. And this is just their regular nitrogen cold brew. Shout outs to Telly right there. So we're doing that. And let's see, where are we at in Baudelaire? So we've been warming up every day with pieces of Flowers of Evil. And hopefully the next poem is a little bit shorter. Yes, it is a little bit shorter. So this is The Albatross by Charles Baudelaire. And please tell me if I'm butchering his name. Anything that's foreign, I can't pronounce it right because all of it I've just read it. I haven't actually heard anybody say it. The albatross. Often, to pass the time on board, the crew will catch an albatross, one of those big birds which nonchalantly chaperone a ship across the bitter fathoms of the sea. Tied to the deck, this sovereign of space, as if embarrassed by its clumsiness, pitiably, wow, I've never said that word before in my life. Tied to the deck, this sovereign of space, as if embarrassed by its clumsiness, pitiably lets its great white wings drag at its side like a pair of unshipped oars. How weak and awkward, even comical, this traveler, but lately so adroit. One deckhand sticks a pipe stem in its beak, another mocks the cripple that once flew. The poet is like this monarch of the clouds, riding the storm above the marksman's range, exiled on the ground, hooted and jeered. He cannot walk because of his great wings. God damn, Baudelaire had a high opinion of himself. Good God Almighty. No, so yeah, we lost Dwayne. Pour one out for Big Dwayne. The devil poetry of Baudelaire was too much for him. Okay, so this is chapter 12, which means that we have been getting 1.25 chapters edited each day, because we've been going at it for 8 days, and 12 chapters have been edited. I think that math is completely fucking wrong. Oh, it's actually much more, as if we were doing 1.5 chapters a day. God, don't ever let me run the money on anything. So if you haven't been into this story before, I'll give you a quick recap. This is GRAVID. This is my 8th novel. I'm Zach ZYZ. I'm a writer from Brooklyn, and hardly as coarse as I would appear on here or my other award-winning radio show. So this is my 8th novel. It's about 700 pages long. We're currently at page 82 of that 700, so we're just over 10%. So the idea of this story so far is the story begins with Freya Jokla. She is a 16-year-old girl living in northern Maine and the fictional town of Silas. And she becomes very depressed after the death of her father, which we'll get into possibly in this chapter, because it's the psychiatrist chapter. In fact, she becomes so depressed that she becomes withdrawn and starts getting bullied at school. After the most recent bout of bullying, where a girl punches her in the eye, she lays down on the ground and just lets it rain on her. She doesn't fight back. She doesn't run away, and stays there in the freezing rain until at last somebody sees her from an upstairs window, and they all rush down and carry her back to the school, and they're like, "Why are you laying in the rain?" So then her mother comes to the office to get her, and the other girl's mother is there as well, and her mother beats the fuck out of this other girl's mother, puts her in the hospital, and so her mother, in the story, Freya has just bailed her mother out of jail, and she is sitting in a Taco Time restaurant, and the girls that were bullying her, along with this guy that she used to date, come up to the window and are banging on the glass and taunting her again. And after all that bullshit, they throw a rock through the window and it shatters it. And so at this point in the story, Freya has attempted suicide and failed. And as she's attempting suicide, a meteorite has crashed down behind her. She has dug up the meteorite and brought it back home. And it turns out that the meteorite has snapped itself in half, and at its center was a little 25 millimeter violet orb, like about the size of a big marble. And it's about where we're at right there. There's some controversy as to what the orb is all about, and we're going to get down into it. Hoo-yah! Okay, and at some point I need to swap this Mountain Dew out for actual water here. But until then, we're just going to drink coffee. Okay, so you see the first note on chapter 12 is this is the anchor to get the days right fix. So I think in terms of Freya's schedule, she goes to Krav Maga class on Wednesday. This has to be a Thursday here, which would mean... does that fucking work? Okay, so November 4th is going to be blah, 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 blah. Okay, so day 1, Freya goes to school, gets in a fight, November 4th. Day 2, November 5th. World plunging around her. So day 2 is suicide. Hell yeah. I'm getting right down to it. I don't even want to fuck around with anything else. Actually, day 1 is suicide. Day 2 is bailing Lassa out, the taco time. So that's November 5th. This takes place. November 5th, left for reference. It is a difficult problem, yet I am a solver. Mm-hmm. November 5th. Mm-hmm. Okay, so November 5th is taco time. And then 3 days elapse in the story. I'll go ahead, call them. Look, it took a long time for the police to come. I understand now. An epiphany. Yeah, sorry. Just getting the timeline right is something that absolutely needs to happen for the story to work out. Okay, so yeah, 3 days after the glass broke. Third day, she was completely sick of the house. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so I say that evening. Yeah, we'll leave it at... All right, so what's happening here is that... let's see what our note is here. Focal point for fixing time. This is November 8th, and then we... Our regular day becomes Thursday. Done. All right, let's see what be happening. There we go. United Kingdoms. Oh, it's fucking... I don't understand why that happened there. So Logic is asking, is this 2019 or 2020 or 2040? I think it's about 2040 because that's how long it's going to fucking take me to get this thing published. But no, I haven't picked a year for this yet. But probably like 2024 or something like that is where we'll start working on it. Oh, I don't want to go through the whole fucking... Look at all these spoilers happening here. Okay, so here's an important note. I have never been through therapy. I don't know what it's like to visit a psychiatrist or a therapist or a psychotherapist or a psychologist or any of this shit. So with that being said, Uh, November 8th, 2040 is a Thursday. Oh, that's true. Yeah, we'll have to get some of those dates and everything right. But mm, I don't think the technology is advanced enough for it to be 2040. It has to be somewhere in the somewhere in like this story could potentially take place um anytime between I think 2010 and 2028. Um, do a timeline in Microsoft Project. You know, it's honestly really a smart idea to do a timeline as we're working through this. So, not in Microsoft Project. Uh, so 2029. Ooh, I like the sound of 20. Or is that 2019? He's saying right there. 2029. Let's just go with 2029. I like the idea of it being 2029. Now, if it's 2029, we have to make a few proposals as to what the technology is going to be like. Because right now, the technology in this book is just like, oh shit, Stratum did therapy. Well, let's get down to it. That evening, Freya had to go to her first appointment with the psychiatrist. She'd spent most of the day reading and was glad to get out of the house, even She spent the rest of the day reading and was glad to get out of the house, even to somewhere she didn't want to. See, that's not a good sentence. That's why we do this editing. Even if it meant going somewhere she didn't want to. That's a clunky sentence. That evening, Freya had to go to her first appointment with the psychiatrist. She'd spent the rest of the day reading and was glad to get out of the house, even if it meant going to something she would hate. Lassa dropped her off at the... what's across the street from her? Mm. Soulless professional building. Yeah, let's get a fucking scene happening here. 20, yeah, yeah. No, that's not a good sentence. Ooh, I'm struggling this morning. Let me see. So let's one of the therapists I went to was from one of the original McDonald's franchises outside of Chicago. You had to get buzzed in through two doors because it housed crazy people they didn't want to escape on another ward. It was a soulless professional building, Office Park Cube. I went to one once that was across the street from a generic Irish pub sports bar that was on the immaculate lawn of a strip mall with a grocery store, but it was also a nondescript professional building. Thing is, nothing in a story should be nondescript because your job is to describe things. Mm. You know what would be cool? If all the streets in the town were named after poets. Oh yes, hello. Yeah, I like that idea because then we can use Emerson Street for the tie-in and get at it. All right, the mm, 4 empty houses. Mm-hmm. 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 I think all of Silas River Sentinel would be italicized. So you're meant to italicize the names of publications. Let's see. Mm, okay. So I like this description right there. Generally, it's a constant theme uh, through Gravid of things falling apart right here, and so we didn't have any kind of a setting there. One thing that's happening in the course of this story is that the town of Silas is growing. Now it has a jail, and what do we have here? People have spent so much energy on. Oh, this is a good question right there. Okay, so I think calling something a soulless cube of black glass on Emerson Street is a little beating people over the head with it, honestly. Uh, Let me see here. Oh, good. Inaccurate, irregular, unwarranted. That's what we want. All right, so how does that even track? Dr. Garbuglio's practice was in a discordant cube of black glass at the ass end of Emerson Street. Ringing it. Dr. Yeah. Dr. Garbuglio. I should really get to where I can read this. Dr. Garbuglio's practice was in a discordant cube of black glass at the ass end of Emerson Street. Ringing it was in a boarded subdivision, 4 empty houses and 40 vacant lots. Years of red-faced council meetings and screaming headlines in the Silas River Sentinel had opposed the development, but it had finally died of its own. Mm-hmm. I like it. Mm-hmm. 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 Uh-huh. Let's find a Maine poet. Poets from Maine. Let's get the first one. First one of these people that I recognize. Wait, who's this character? American haiku poet. Huh. Robert P.T. Coffin. Oh, I like. Hold on. Look at this character. uh, also illustrated many of his books. Let's see. Okay, well, I don't know who this character is, but far be it from me to. Hold on just a second. Kind of looks like Rip Taylor. Rebecca Dunham. I haven't read her work. So I like the idea of all the streets in town being named after poets. Let me add that to the comment. So this is going to be November 8th. I like that a lot better because, like, right now they're shit like River Road and Bridge Street and Willow Street and everything, and it's a good idea. As we're working on those sections, we could get some of their work and read it as our warm-up poem. I love it. Okay, so now we had like no exposition as to what this building was all about, and now we have this very look at it. See, this is how writing works for me. All these like all these like blocks of text. All right. Okay, cool. So let's see. That evening, Freya had to go to her first appointment with so just as a word of warning, there are some sections that will need extensive rewriting and they will be slower. These are the days where we'll probably get like one chapter done in our 3 hours. Everything involving Dr. Garboglio will be slow. Those are difficult chapters and they probably need a fair amount of work. So just strap in. And basically any chapter where we go into it and we don't have like a solid description of the place where events are occurring, we'll have to run through a sequence like that because everywhere, I just want the setting to be good in all these places. When we do the edit for Rapasaurus, which is probably coming up next, if Daw doesn't just fucking buy it within the next 3 months, every single room in Rapasaurus is going to need additional description. And then, like we put the description in, the editor cuts the irrelevant shit out. So that this whole fucking... So let's take a listen and see how it came out there. That evening, Freya had to go to her first appointment with the psychiatrist. She'd spent the rest of the day reading. She was glad to get out of the house, even if it meant going to something she would hate. Dr. Garboglio's practice was in a discordant cube of black glass at the ass end of Emerson Street. Yeah, I don't think we can have ass end. I love ass end. What do they call it? It's like a town limit of fucking, what do they call like the end? Let's just call it the edge of town. Dr. Garboglio's practice was at the edge of town in a discordant cube of black glass on Emerson Street. Ringing it was an aborted subdivision, 4 empty houses in various stages of construction, and 40 vacant lots. Across the street, they'd planned to build a whole shopping complex, but it had never happened. Ringing the office was ringing the office. Behind the building was an aborted subdivision, 4 empty houses in various stages of construction, and 40 vacant lots. Years of red-faced council meetings and screaming headlines in the Silas River Sentinel had opposed the development. When they finally triumphed, they were rewarded with this corpse of a neighborhood. Acres of cleared forest where the proposed supermarket was scuttled, and now trees were beginning to encroach on the farthest lots. Soon, the forest would reclaim what it had lost. The only thing they finished was the office building, jutting from the wasteland. I like that. All right, so Dr. Garbuglio's practice was at the edge of town in a discordant cube of black glass on Emerson Street. Across the street, they'd planned to build a whole shopping complex, but it never happened. Okay, so that's, we don't need had there, I just need to read it correctly. So city limit and unincorporated area, so it's not a city. It's like much more of a town. I like the edge of town a little bit better. So let's try one more time. Dr. Garbuglio's practice was at the edge of town in a discordant cube of black glass on Emerson Street. They'd planned to build a whole shopping complex across the road, but it had never happened. Behind the building was an aborted subdivision, 4 empty houses in various stages of construction, and 40 vacant lots. Years of red-faced council meetings and screaming headlines in the Silas River Sentinel had opposed the development. When they finally triumphed, they were rewarded with this corpse of a neighborhood. Acres of cleared forest where the proposed supermarket was scuttled, and now trees were beginning to encroach on the farthest lots. Soon, the forest would reclaim what it had lost. This building was all they had managed to complete. It jutted from the wasteland like a nail. Ooh, love that. Hell yeah. African-American glass? I don't know. Do people really call it that? Huh. Well, I'll take your word for it. Lynn dropped her off in the parking lot and told her to Lynn dropped Freya off in the parking lot and told her to take a cab home. She'd be out late. Freya wondered if it was Lynn Harris or someone else. That glance at the bedroom hadn't even been a whole second long, but she would never forget it. The office had a vaguely singed smell beneath an orange musk of cleanser or air freshener. Just like home, it was one of those rooms where every single thing had been carefully selected, placed in just a certain way. Just like home, it was one of those rooms where every single thing had been carefully selected, placed at exactly the right spot. Mm-hmm. The office had a vaguely singed smell beneath an orange musk of cleanser or air freshener. Beneath an orange musk of aromatherapy oil. Just like home, it was one of those rooms where every single thing had been carefully selected and exactly arranged. No dust or clutter was allowed to accumulate. The walls were a stark gallery white, and the paintings and pottery were done in purple hues. It was a cold place, and it put Freya on edge. Finally, it's not finally. The receptionist called Freya into the doctor's office. Inside the office, at least, the lights were more muted. One wall was taken up with a large painting. Oh, that took up a whole wall? Yeah, great. The receptionist called Freya into the doctor's office. Inside the office, at least, the lights were more muted. To her right, a large painting took up the entire wall, 10 feet wide and 8 feet tall. 20 feet wide and 8 feet tall. 20 feet is like... How big could this actually be? And if I can get it in here without a crane. "14 feet wide and 8 feet tall. A layer of smooth plaster was broken into 1,000 rivers of glossy, multicolored paint. It looked like a bed of mud that had dried out, and then cracks filled in the... Nice. A layer of smooth plaster was broken into 1,000 rivers of glossy, multicolored paint. It looked like a bed of mud that had dried out if the cracks had been filled. It looked like a bed of mud that had dried out. Then the cracks flooded with iridescent oil. Freya spent a while staring, wondering if they needed a crane to get it in here. The doctor was not in the office. There were 2 armchairs that directly faced each other. Beside them was a small half-circle table with tissues, bottles of water, and a vase of irises. There was no couch. There was no, oh, yeah, what is the name for her? Yeah. Psychiatrist couch, black leather one, and Annie Hall. Oh, yeah, Chase Lounge. That's what I want. Chase Lounge. There was no Chase Lounge like on TV. Behind them was a wall with a large floor-to-ceiling window that faced the mountains. So now I feel kind of bad for putting in a whole should be long with a U. Oh, it does indeed have a U. Curse you, Spathy-Wa. You're absolutely right. I just looked at the word too, so I should have remembered it. Chase longe. Thank you for yeah, I literally just looked at the word and I'm like, okay, I'll remember how to spell this. I don't need to cut and paste. I was wrong. So yeah, I don't know that we can actually have this new paragraph about where they're at, because we spend so much time getting into all this description of the office. But we'll be in this office many times. We're paying our dues so that we can do this later. Behind the armchairs was a floor-to-ceiling window that loomed over the empty lots and looked out at the mountains behind them. And looked out at the hazy mountains behind them. The left wall was a tall row of bookshelves. There was a door with it. At Freya's immediate left was a door with a red exit sign that led to the hallway. She guessed it was so people could leave without going through the reception and seeing the other patients. She browsed through the bookshelves, finding one shelf that was all copies of the same book, The Fragile Phoenix, by Dr. Garboglio. Okay. So here in the book, we'll add an illustration of the book's spine. Just kind of like sitting flat as a divider between the chapter. It would be great if there was a chapter break here, but there is not, and there never will be. All right, how long have we been here? 7:01? Okay. I'm going to not take more than 2 minutes. I will be gone for back in 1 minute to rest my eyes and get something to drink. I'll be right back. Peter Spot. Yeah, learned the hard way that if you take a 5-minute break, whole audience bails. People like their editing to be non-stop. I can't blame them. She browsed through the bookshelves, finding one shelf that was all copies of the same book, The Fragile Phoenix by Dr. Garboglio. I don't think Garboglio has a first name yet. How do you spell Vincente? Is there... Vincente... Yep. He's going to be Dr. Vincente Garboglio. I'm putting edit in front of the things that are new in this edit so I don't get confused with the other comments, because there are like 130 comments. I should really be using a different commenter name. Oh, Yeah, I should be using a different commenter name. Like, I should have named myself fucking editor for this one, but I don't remember the key command. Let's see. And it's not that. There it is. Okay, cool. Invisibles are blue. Show template cursor. Use template default zoom, default font, editing, curves default to Bezier, equations with heading media, text size, 12 point, cool. So yeah, so now comments will, that we do ZYZ at all. All right. Yeah. What do we got here? The spine was a midnight blue. Why is the spine faux leather and the rest of the book is it? Mm-hmm. The book was bound in midnight blue faux leather. The title lettering was indent. Were indented in silver. Freya reached for one, but stopped herself. She didn't want the doctor to barge in and find her messing with his bookshelves. She glanced around the room and noticed the camera over the door she'd come in. She tilted her head. Was she being observed right now? Was this part of the whole thing? The room had the feeling of a trap just about to spring, and she wondered if she could just leave here and ask Lassa to find some other psychiatrist. But this is the one Lassa had picked out. It was useless to try to leave. Yes, this is a little redundant. Was she being observed right now? Was this part of the whole thing? The room had the feeling of a trap just about to spring, and she wondered if she could just leave and ask Freya. Was she being observed right now? Was this part of the whole thing? The room had the feeling of a trap just about to spring. Freya wondered if she could just leave and ask Lassa to find some other psychiatrist. But Lassa had specifically picked Dr. Garbuglio. There was no escape. Freya sat down in the armchair. Freya sat down in the armchair facing the camera and stared directly at it. After several minutes, the doctor finally entered the room. After several minutes, Garbuglio entered the office through the hallway door. She had expected an older man. Instead, shouldn't that? Okay, let's take a look. Embossed is sticking out. Debossed is dented in. Oh, okay. Let's see. So yeah, I don't know that debossed is really. I forget if you let's take a look if you can indent spine lettering. I think spinal cord. Yeah, so dimple, gutter. Let me see. Let me see if debossed. Well, I think we can go with debossed. See, if we have to say debossed, we almost don't want. We don't want people to like stop to look up the word, but I think. No, that kind of tracks. Yeah. And I like debossed because it reminds me of finally getting rid of bossy. Shout outs to EFS Enable. Stamped applies for metal. Well, good, because it is metal. Just very, very thin metal. Trap about to be sprung. Let's take a look. His hair was black and fine, with a high widow's peak. He might not even be 40 yet. No wonder Lassa picked him. Gosh, she just thinks her mother is such a whore. So I like that Spathiwa thinks it should be legal to refer to Garbuglio as just Garbuglio. He stood over her and extended a hand. She had to get up to shake it. She noticed his hand was damp and his fly was slightly undone. He'd just come from the bathroom. Ugh. His handshake was too hard, but just below the point where she would say something about it. You must be Freya. I'm Dr. Garbuglio. Do you mind if I sit in that chair? The two chairs were identical, round, black leather armchairs. She looked at the two, and for an instant she wanted to tell him no, but that was childish. She moved to the other chair, feeling uncomfortable. It was like every part of this was designed to put her on edge. Maybe it was. She waited for him to talk, and he was silent for a long moment. She made up her mind that she wasn't coming back here. It's so I can see the clock behind you, Dr. Garbuglio explained, pointing up at the clock, and she resisted the urge to turn her head and look at it. I don't want to keep you late, though if you need to... I don't want to keep you late, though if you ever need to, we can talk for as long as you want. Freya nodded quickly. She'd already talked as long as she wanted to. So this first session, I'm just going to be asking you some easy questions, okay? I just want to find out what's going on. Okay. Have you ever spoken with a psychiatrist before? No, I haven't, she said. He had to already know this. The things we say here are private. I'm not going to tell your mother what you say. Nothing you say is... I'm not going to tell your mother what you say. Nothing will ever leave this room unless I feel like you're in danger or someone else is, okay? Her eyes narrowed and she glanced at him. She wondered if he was lying. But you're recording everything, right? She nodded her head back towards the camera. Yes, for a lot of reasons. The other cameras are there, and there, and there's a microphone on the side table. Dr. Garboglio indicated the two cameras she hadn't noticed, and the microphone on the table, which was just a black wedge next to the vase of irises. Is it normal to record everything? Some psychiatrists do, some don't. I'm a believer in recording sessions. I review everything in case I miss something important. Also, I deal with a lot of people who are going through some very difficult times, and having a record is a good precaution for both of us. I won't show your recordings to anyone else unless, as I said, I feel like you're in danger or someone else is. Freya must have looked unconvinced. Here's an important thing about those recordings and your psychiatric records. I can't give them to anyone unless I have a court order to do so. Not your mother, not even the police. It's nothing interesting. It's nothing that interesting, Freya said, and Dr. Garboglio shifted his head. Not quite a nod. Okay, do you have any other questions before we begin? She shook her head. How old are you, Freya? I'm 16. You go to Grayson High. Do you like it there? It's okay. What's your favorite class there? So this is the first time where I'm doing a dialogue that's between two people, and I'm doing it wrong. Would he say doctors or psychiatrists about people like himself? That's a good question. So, to Garboglio, status, very important, especially his own status. So he would probably call himself a doctor. Yeah, that's a good idea. Some doctors do, some don't. Oh, that's why we have psychiatrists, because of the way. Okay, so let's try this. So getting the pacing for dialogue between two characters is relatively difficult, and I think I'm doing it too fast. One thing that we learned in narration class was that the dialogue actually has to be like a little bit faster than description, or it feels kind of artificial. But if it's too fast, it's like you don't have the natural pauses of conversation. So this is something that it will probably take a fair amount of practice to get decent at. Gift card. Here's an important thing about those recordings in your psychiatric records. I can't give them to anyone else unless I have a court order to do so. Not your mother, not even the police. It's nothing that interesting, Freya said, and Dr. Garboglio shifted his head. Not quite a nod. Okay. Do you have any other questions before we begin? She shook her head. How old are you, Freya? I'm 16. You go to Grayson High. Do you like it there? It's okay. What's your favorite class there? I don't really have one. Last year I liked drama. But not this year? This year has been tough. Is it okay if I ask you some questions about your father? Yes. I understand he died. He died 6 months ago. Okay. I understand he died 6 months ago. Could you tell me about it? Don't you already know? I only know that he died. It's important that I hear it from you. We're not going to dig deep. This is only the first meeting, okay? Again, you don't have to talk about anything you don't feel comfortable with. He was killed. Oh, yeah, when she looks at the exit sign, I wonder if she could say something about no exit. All right, so Logic has a comment here. Okay, not capitalized after he says this first session. If she's just there to talk it out, she'd be seeing a therapist and only going to the psychiatrist for the pills. No, she is definitely there to get pills. For real. Yeah, so it is a little bit weird And it may be something that we have to change up the wording, but Garbuglio needs to be kind of like a slightly sinister psychiatrist figure throughout the story here. And in the rewrite, the pills that he gives are going to be a part of it. So I'm not sure if we can get away with that, or if we have to have two separate people. I had one therapist I was ordered to go to, left without permission, walked 2 miles home. Hell yeah. So I couldn't leave. The next therapist, I had to go buzz through doors to get out, so I couldn't leave. Damn. Well, this isn't court ordered quite yet, but we'll see what becomes. Oh, we lost a light. Oh, no wonder it's so fucking dark. Give me a sec. Let me see if I can fucking fix this. To say it again. Would you kill for me? You won't be kissing me unless you kill for me. Oh, there we go. Yeah, look at this. I'm fucking doing. Oh, I do like that part about getting buzzed through gate. I'll use that later. There, yeah. Thank you so much for being a part of that, Stratum. Super helpful to have any info at all about this, because I just don't know what I'm fucking doing here. So really, I'm going to make a note about the fact that usually psychiatrists and therapists are broken up there, and we'll try to find a way to justify that. Yeah, it might be something like Lasso's just like, I don't want to deal with a bunch of fucking people. So psychiatrists are a more evil empire than psychologists, or great. That's where I want to be at. And in fact, like one of the goals of this rewrite is to make it less obvious whose side Garbuglio's on. We'll get into it there. But we're going to add some significant nuance to his character right now, because he's not as interesting as I want him to be. So like part of it, we've already given him a name, got this description of him and everything. But let's get into it. Also, if anything I'm saying sounds like a psychiatrist wouldn't fucking say that, let me know. Because again, I'm like out of my element right here. I told you guys, like for like 2 years, I would just ask every girl that I went out with on a date, like what her therapy was like, to try and get an idea of where some of this shit was like. And I never, no, there's like 100 different women I went out with. I never, ever, ever asked, so what kind of therapy do you go to? Nobody was ever like, no, I don't go to therapy. Not a single one of 100 women in New York City. And that might say something about my economic class, but it's more every fucking woman in this city is insane. Real talk. I understand he died 6 months ago. Is it okay if we talk about it? Don't you already know? I only know that he died. It's important that I hear it from you. We're not going to dig deep. This is only the first meeting, okay? Again, you don't have to talk about anything you don't feel comfortable with. Freya exhaled. No escape. All right, so... It was a lie. There was no exit. It is plausible for one to do both. Good, good. Yeah, that's what I want. Also, I like the idea that this character, like something that two people normally try to do, he's like, oh, I can do it all. Me. We need more of that in this. So I only know that he died. I only know that he died, not the specifics. It's important that I hear it from you. No, I don't. Yeah, let's just leave it at that. We're not going to dig deep. This is only the first meeting, okay? Again, you don't have to talk about anything you don't feel comfortable about. Freya exhaled. No exit. Yeah, I like that change because we're calling back to the play. Hell yeah. He was killed. He was killed, she said, surprised by how difficult it was to get the words out. I'm sorry to hear that. It's... Freya trailed off, and she realized she had thought about this. She realized she... Freya trailed off. As much as she had thought about this, she hadn't said anything about it in months. She'd just been carrying it like a lead weight in her guts. She'd just been carrying it all, like a lead weight in her guts. You can take as much time as you want. Whenever you're ready, could you tell me what happened? He got stabbed. He wasn't on duty. This guy was beating someone up at the pool hall. Randall tried to break them up, and the guy pulled out a knife and stabbed him in the neck. Mm-hmm. He got stabbed. He wasn't on duty. This guy from Toronto was beating someone up at the pool hall. Randall tried to break them up. The attacker pulled out a knife and stabbed him in the neck. Dr. Garbuglio didn't say anything. He just watched Freya. Oh, I missed the note on the capitalization of okay. God, he says okay like 50 fucking times. All right, I don't want to ever have okay capitalized. Although I think that's something that an editor will do. I don't like the word okay either, where it's AY. I'm not sure if I love okay, just like that. Yeah, let's just. And in fact, we're gonna do this all right now. No, no, let's not do a find and replace on the whole book. But at some point, we'll do a find and replace and make all of our OKs lowercase OKs, so that occasionally we can have a double uppercase OK for when somebody's like, okay, you know, like that kind of fucking thing. It's okay. Wow, I didn't realize that they say okay like. Yeah, let's try and cut out some of these. Okay, 20 of them. Let's try to remove instances where Garbuglio says okay, and just have it be Freya, because she is uncomfortable and he's not. That'll make his tone like a little bit less. He got stabbed. He wasn't on duty. This guy from Toronto was beating somebody up at. So there's a name for this pool hall. I can't remember the name of the bar that everybody hangs out at. Uh, uh, I don't want to give away too much here. 7. Let's go to 12. There we go. Yeah, I forget. Somewhere later in the story, there is a. Well, let's see if we can find a. Huh. 3 cushion duffer. All right, let's. Uh, all right. Well, I'm gonna, for want of a better shabooms. It was a conscious switch. Yeah. If you want the doc to say okay, use all right. So let's see. In transcription work, they always did it as okay, and if they want the doc to use okay, use all right. Yeah, I had already done that without even seeing what the fuck is going on. So nice. Where are we here? They call it Q Boys Billiards. Oh God. Actually, they could spell it. Here, hold on. Oh, that's awful. I don't think we're actually gonna call it Q Boys, but Dr. Garbuglio didn't say anything. He just watched Freya and waited. She felt she had to go on. They say he died really quickly. His artery got cut, so he didn't suffer long. She felt like she had to say that part. What happened to the murderer? He went out into the parking lot right afterward and shot himself in his car. The man who was getting beaten up lost an eye, but he lived. That's terrible, Freya. I'm very sorry to hear that. Dr. Book. That's terrible, Freya. I'm very sorry to hear that. Okay, so we don't need that said. In general, I'd love to get like some of these saids out of the book. Dr. Garboglio shifted his posture in the seat. He seemed unprepared for this, and she immediately felt like he was incompetent. How did you find out? He asked. I was asleep. Lasso woke me up and told me. I didn't really believe. I didn't believe for a long time. Even at the funeral, I kept expecting it not to be real. Every morning for a long time I woke up and I just wanted it to be a dream. I was asleep. Lasso woke me up and told me. I didn't really believe. I didn't believe for a long time. Even at the funeral, I kept expecting it not to be real. Every morning I would wake up. It was crushing. Again, the half nod. Do you still have that feeling? No, I know he's gone. I just wanna... She stopped herself. No, I know he's gone. I just wanna... She swallowed what she was about to say. To feel better, she concluded. Suddenly, his eyes were very alert. She'd almost screwed up. She was... Suddenly, his eyes were very alert. She'd almost screwed up. If she told Garbuglio even anything that even hinted at suicide, he was going to put her in Spring Harbor. A part of her thought that maybe that wouldn't be the worst thing, but it was only a small part. She didn't trust this guy with his weird handshake and his cameras. She didn't trust this guy with his wet handshake and his cameras. Maybe Lassa just wanted to get rid of her, and this was how she was going to do it. Ooh, I like that. I like the paranoia that her mother. Oh, shout outs to this gavel right here. Q Boys, the gayest billiard hall in town with an arcade in the back. I love it. And then they can be joshing each other about how it's cute boys. Hell yeah. Fucking. That's so awful, Stratum. I would shoot at cute boys. I'm just putting it out there. I don't know if they'd let me in, but you know what I'm saying. Suddenly, his eyes were very alert. She'd almost screwed up. If she told Garbuglio anything that even hinted at suicide, he was going to put her in Spring Harbor. A part of her thought maybe that wouldn't be the worst thing, but it was only a small part. She didn't trust this guy with his wet handshake and his cameras. Maybe Lassa just wanted to get rid of her, and this was how she was going to do it. Are you having a difficult time in school? Not with grades, no. Just some girls are picking on me. You were in a fight, right? It wasn't a fight. She just hit me. I didn't hit her back. Why? Why? Why didn't you hit her back? I didn't want to. You told your principal afterward that you didn't want to get up. You were lying on the ground in the rain. I think I was just hurt, maybe half unconscious. She hit me pretty hard. Why did you tell the principal you didn't want to get up? Dr. Garboglio asked. He lasered in on that tiny evasion. He wouldn't let it go. Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, so some commentary from Logic here that I really want to get into here. Cold and wet hand shape. Just go in the back door. Stratum said it would always super bug me when, say, therapists or psychiatrists would hammer on some point or what seemed like a minor detail I left out because they seemed to know I was lying, evading. Logic says I only ever talked to people that took what I said at face value, but I was not invested in it. They weren't either, except monetarily, so it worked out. Both sides checking blocks. Ooh, fucking love that. What a good phrase. Yeah, just checking off the things that they have to say. Nobody really caring. Fucking love it. This is already so different from the last therapist. Hmm. This is already so different from the last therapist. When she couldn't sleep after Randall died, Lassa brought her to a curly-haired woman whose office was in a converted farmhouse. North of town. Freya had no difficulty handling her. She'd gone in knowing the exact medication she wanted and led the therapist to a predetermined conclusion. There had been a psychiatrist there too, but he was just a rubber stamp on the prescription. Garbuglio reminded her of her mother. I was embarrassed that I got it beat up, she lied, staring intently at Dr. Garbuglio, daring him to call her on it. I was embarrassed that I got beat up, she lied, staring intently at Dr. Garbuglio, daring him to call her on it. So you lied to him? Yes. Do you do that a lot? No, not really. Not really? He needled. She raised her head abruptly and stared at him, catching him by surprise. I don't like it when people do that. Do what? I don't like it when people do that. Do what? Repeat the last thing you said as a question. It really bothers me. It's a gimmick. For a second, Dr. Garbuglio looked a little embarrassed, like he'd been caught out. A tiny victory. He cleared his throat. Can you tell me about your friends? I don't have a lot. My best friend moved to Ohio. He cleared his throat and changed the subject. Can you tell me about your friends? I don't have a lot. My best friend moved to Ohio about 3 months ago, so she moved to Wisconsin. My best friend moved to Wisconsin about 3 months ago. What's her name? I think there's confusion between... I think we renamed Betty, but we'll just have her first name. Betty. Do you still keep in touch with her? I try, but her mother took her phone away because of her grades. She still keeps in touch, but it's just not like it was. Do you wish things could be like they were a lot? That's a stupid question, Freya said. Why is it stupid? Because it's obvious. She was angry. She didn't like Dr. Garbuglio. She took a deep breath through her nose, reminding herself that she had to be careful with this guy. Because it's obvious. She was angry. She didn't like Dr. Garbuglio. She took a deep... Yeah, that should be a period. Because it's obvious. Freya was angry. She didn't like Dr. Garbuglio. She took a deep breath through her nose, reminding herself that this man could put her in a mental ward. Freya, I'm just trying to help here. You don't have to be combative. Immediately, she wanted to deny that she was being combative. She wanted to yell at this guy to tell him to fuck off. And then she could see the way he was looking at her. Immediately, she wanted to deny that she was being combative. She wanted to yell at him. She wanted to yell at Garbuglio and tell him to fuck off. She could see something in the way he was looking at her. That was exactly what he wanted. He was trying to provoke her. Garbuglio was very good at being annoying. Garbuglio was very good at being annoying. No one had gotten under his skin like this since Randall died. Was that what it took? She sighed and looked behind her at the clock. Only 10 minutes left. She answered his remaining questions with terse replies of 1 or 2 words, and it felt like an eternity. She sighed and looked behind her at the clock. Only 10 minutes left. She answered his remaining questions with terse replies or 1 or 2 words, and it felt like an eternity. Dr. Garbuglio went on asking, but without pressing her. He seemed to recognize right away he'd gotten as far as he could. At the end, he thanked her and shook her hand. This time, he didn't clamp down too hard. He was rattling on about recovery, but she didn't hear him. She put her hand in her pocket and held the star ball. She'd started doing that when she was nervous. She put her hand in her pocket and held the star and felt the star ball's warmth. At the end, he thanked her and shook her hand. This time he didn't clamp down too hard. He was rattling on about recovery, but she didn't hear him. She put her hand in her pocket and felt the star ball's warmth. She'd started doing that whenever she felt nervous or upset. Finally, it was time for her to nod at him, and she left through the door to the hall and took a cab home. She never wanted to come back, but Lassa would make her. All right, real talk. So let's see, what's our next chapter here? Chapter 13. Okay, so chapter 12 to chapter 13. Well, let's shout out to everybody who made it this far. What do I see? I see a few people remaining in that old chat. But yeah, like okay, so I think we made some progress with both with this scene. I think we did a decent job of sort of setting the scene a little bit better. I think it's a little weighty in terms of the block of description that we have there. And I like some of the changes that we made to Dr. Barboglio. One of the things that I wanted to include here was that she had previously seen a psychiatrist, and she just easily handled the lady because her mother is an interrogator. So yeah, let me take like 2 minutes here and walk around, suck my own dick. And then we'll come back and we're going to try and get, maybe we can get a whole another chapter done. I don't know how long, let's see how long the next chapter is. So chapter number 13, and today's Friday the 13th. So yeah, it's only right that we do it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, just 4 pages? Yeah, we're definitely going to we'll finish chapter 13. If it's 4 pages long, potentially it needs to be popped to something else. So I'm going to create at some point an animation that we can have on this guy, so that we can that like just a we'll be right back image or something like that. But okay, be right back. I did see the last full moon of 2019 last night. Hell yeah. Okay. Oh, so for all you people out there who just saw something and said something, like called up 311 about this. Yeah, flying into the World Trade is just New York slang for taking a piss. So now you know. And knowing is half of the battle. I don't know what the fuck happens this chapter. The morning after the visit to Dr. Garbuglio, Freya woke up early. Well, this is... The next morning, Freya woke up early as the first rays of dawn were prying through her window. They reflected off the emerald leaves of Yggdrasil and painted her ceiling green. She watched the shadows shift as the sun rose. She needed to pee, but she didn't want to get up. It was too early. She didn't want to get out of bed until Lasse had left for work. The next morning, Freya woke up early as the first rays of dawn were prying through her window. They reflected off the emerald leaves of Yggdrasil and painted her ceiling with green... so this is a... Mm-hmm. She stared upward and watched the light shift as the sun rose. She needed to pee. Okay, so I think that's a little bit better. The next morning, Freya woke up early as the first rays of dawn were prying through her window. They reflected off the emerald leaves of Yggdrasil and painted her ceiling green. She stared upward and watched the light shift as the sun rose. She needed to pee. Freya needed to pee, but she didn't get out of bed. It was too early. She didn't want to leave her room until Lasse went to work. There was the dangling thread of something at the back of her mind, and she tugged at it, the ghost of a dream. She could only remember the sense of sliding through darkness, motion and anticipation, but nothing else. Why dream? I think we are overusing the needing to take a piss. It's been like 2 or 3 times in this fucking story. That girl has a bladder problem. Maybe that's a side effect of the Lunesta. Real talk. Yeah, yeah. Women not the greatest at holding it. I'm just putting it out there. Mm. Oh yeah. So Spathiwa says, it irks me. Traps don't have agency. Traps don't spring by themselves. Okay, I have to go. Talk to you later. Huh. Uh, I wonder what's going on with Spathiwa right there. Did he have a dust up with a she-male significant other? If so, I hope that they will resolve it soon. Or is it something that I have done that is irking this individual? We'll find out soon. Well, he had a note about the trap preparing to spring. Let me. Oh, so that's it. That's it. He's talking about where this chapter where she has the feeling that a trap is about to spring. And traps don't spring by themselves, which is true. Like somebody has to activate the trap, whether they blunder into it or whatever. Let's take a look at that sentence because it's bugging him. The room felt like a trap, and if she stayed here, she was sure to spring it. Freya wondered if she could just leave and ask Lassa to find some other psychiatrist, but Lassa had specifically picked Dr. Garboglio. She stared up at the sign again. Mm-hmm. That which is falling should also be pushed. Okay, I think those are some improvements there. So I'm glad that we took a gander at those two lines. It's worth revisiting Spathiwa's notes because generally I've agreed with most of his edits there. The next morning, Freya woke up early. Extra space. Freya needed to pee, but she didn't get out of bed. It was too early. She didn't want to leave her room until Lassa went to work. A thread was fluttering at the back of her mind, and she tugged it, tumbling into the ghost of a dream. She dreamed of going blind. The world had slowly retreated into an indistinct blur, and all went dark. She was left sliding through the void, anticipating a trash. The falling in place feeling had jolted her awake. And she immediately regret waking. She wondered why she dreamed of going blind, or why she was dreaming at all. Was the Lunesta becoming less effective? That had to happen at some point. You built up a tolerance. Freya shrank from the thought. What if she stopped being able to sleep? Everything was so hard already. Love this. She looked over at the desk where the Lunesta bottle was and noticed her laptop was missing. Freya looked over at the desk where the Lunesta bottle was and noticed her laptop was missing. She blinked, wondering what had happened. Had someone broken in and taken it? It was an old laptop. She hardly ever even used it. Everything was on her phone. The mystery was enough to get her out of bed, and she turned on the light and looked around the room, wondering if she had moved it and forgotten about it. It wasn't in her room, and finally, she really had to use the bathroom. Afterward, she found Lassa at the kitchen table with her laptop, frowning at the screen. "This is so slow," Lassa complained. "Sorry," Freya said automatically, and Lassa shot her a look. "I mean, it's just old. When was the last time you used it?" "I haven't turned it on since I got the new phone." "Don't you need it for school?" Freya shook her head. "Well, something is wrong with the internet. It's really slow. I'm just checking to make sure you don't have a virus." "Do Macs get viruses?" "Yes, it's just uncommon. If it's been turned off, it's not this. Let me see your phone." Freya went back to her room and got the phone, trying to remember if there was anything on it she didn't want Lassa to see. But she hadn't talked to anyone in almost a month. It had been over 3 weeks since the last email she'd sent to Betty, and she still hadn't gotten a reply. Freya went back to her room and got the phone, trying to remember if there was anything on it she didn't want Lassa to see. But she hadn't talked to anyone in almost a month. It had been over 3 weeks since the last email she'd sent to Betty. She still hadn't gotten a reply. Okay, we need to check the timing. Done. It was only as she was handing the phone to Lassa that she realized there were about 100 pictures of the meteor on the phone. It's not a meteor. It was only as she was handing the phone to Lassa that she realized there were about 100 pictures of the meteorite on the phone, and she struggled to come up with an explanation. But Lassa was only going to the phone settings and thumbing through menus. She didn't look at the pictures. Freya went back to her room and got the phone, trying to remember if there was anything on it she didn't want Lassa to see. But she hadn't talked to anyone in almost a month. It had been over 3 weeks since the last email she'd sent to Betty. She still hadn't gotten a reply. It was only as she was handing the phone to Lassa that she realized there were about 100 pictures of the meteorite on the phone, and she struggled to come up with an explanation. But Lassa was only thumbing through system preferences and checking the network settings. She didn't look at the pictures. "It's not your phone. You barely use any data at all. It's not my computer or my phone. Someone must have broken into our network. Let me check the router." "Do you need me for anything?" Freya asked, and Lassa shook her head. Freya showered, brushed her teeth, and got dressed. When she came out, Lassa was still frowning at the screen. "Someone broke into our network and downloaded just a ton of stuff." "Someone broke into our network and downloaded a ton of stuff. This is their address here." Lassa pointed to an entry at the bottom of the device list. Above it, Above it, Freya could see Lasse's map book. Above it, Freya could see her MacBook, Lasse's MacBook Pro, and each of their phones. There was an entry for Samsung TV also. There was an entry for Samsung TV also. Mm-hmm. Nope, that's a good note right there, Stratham. Okay. Someone broke into our network and downloaded a ton of stuff. This is their address here. Lassa turned her laptop screen towards Freya. She was logged into the router and looking at a list of active DHCP leases. Freya saw her laptop, Lassa's MacBook, and each of their phones. There was an entry for Samsung TV also. The final entry was a MAC address with no name. In the data transferred column, it said 262.25 gigabytes. Freya's phone wasn't even 2 gigabytes. As they watched, the number steadily climbed to 263 and kept going. Lassa tried to launch the calculator on Freya's laptop, but it was taking a while to load, and finally the cursor turned into the spinning beach ball. With an annoyed sigh, Lassa pulled out her phone and started typing in numbers. We have a 10 megabit line. That can download about 4 gigs an hour. It looks like they've been maxing out the line for about 3 days. Okay, that's why we need 7.5. Okay, yeah. Yeah, you're right there. Mm-hmm. Freya's phone wasn't even 2 gigs. As they watched, the number climbed to 263 and kept going. Lassa tried to launch the calculator on Freya's laptop. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay, so um ba, 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 ba. Okay, cool. So that's the confusion. It's like you think that Lassa is using her laptop. Um but okay. I think that was like surprisingly difficult to clear up. Lassa turned the laptop screen towards Freya. Ugh, I hate that it fucking capitalizes MacBook. Suck a dick, Apple. Yeah, let's make it a MacBook, though. Because she's a 16-year-old girl. I'm just glad that we're dissing MacBooks hardcore in this fucking piece. I mean, we're writing on a Mac right now. I'm a hypocrite. I think you have to capitalize Mac. Someone broke into our network and downloaded a ton of stuff. This is the list of connected devices. Lassa turned the MacBook screen towards Freya. She was logged into the router and looking at a list of active DHCP leases. Freya saw entries for Lassa's work computer, Freya's laptop, and each of their phones. There was an entry for Samsung TV also. The final entry was a MAC address with no name. They're rich. They would have a Sony. There was an entry for Sony TV also. The final entry was a MAC address with no name. With no device name. In the data transferred column, it said 262.75 gigabytes. Freya's phone hadn't even used 2 gigs. Nothing else on the list had even used 2 gigs. As they watched, the number climbed to 263 and kept going. Lassa tried to launch the calculator on Freya's laptop, but it was taking a while to load, and finally the cursor turned into the spinning beach ball. With an annoyed sigh, Lassa pulled out her phone and started typing in numbers. We have a 10 megabit line that can download 4 gigs an hour. It looks like they've been maxing out the line for about 3 days. Why would they do that? Probably some kid in the neighborhood running torrents. What are they downloading? Can we see what they're downloading? Lassa poked around for a bit in the router. Mm-hmm. Let me see. Yeah, also easier to pick a picture a MacBook. We know what they look like. I don't know what Macs do or how nerdy you want to get, but there are Mac addresses with unknown manufacturer because they are private and reserved manufacturer entries. Yeah. This is a little bit my ballpark here. But yeah, we're not going to get into like real nerd shit here. But I do want all of this to be accurate. It's actually not a lot of routers where they're going to show both the MAC address and the fucking DHCP lease on the same page. But like that, I don't care. Freya is not fucking Cisco certified. Get that CCNE. We got to rush if we want to make it through this chapter. Why would they do that? It's probably some kid in the neighborhood running torrents. Can we see what they're downloading? Finally, something interesting was happening. Lassa poked around a bit in the router's web interface. I don't know if there's a place to see that. Maybe the ISP knows. I'm going to change the wireless password to something stronger. Lassa changed the Wi-Fi password to an unwieldy string of characters and reconnected all their devices. Then she logged back into the router and the weird entry was gone. She browsed on her phone a bit. It seemed much faster. I guess that's it. I'll contact the company just to make sure we're covered in case somebody was doing something illegal. Do you have to tell your work? Freya asked. Lassa blinked. The question made her uncomfortable. Normally, I would, but after the incident at your school, I don't need more attention on me. It's probably nothing. We'll see what the ISP says first. How many more times do I have to see Dr. Garbuglio? How many more times do I have to ask Dr. Do you have to tell your work? Freya asked. Her mother blinked. The question made her uncomfortable. Normally I would, but after the incident at your school, I don't need more attention on me. It's probably nothing. We'll see what the ISP says first. How many more times do I have to see Dr. Garbuglio? Freya asked quickly, trying to capitalize on the moment of vulnerability. 3 more times, if no problems at school. I think we can stop then. I won't let him give you any drugs. Don't worry. Are you still sleeping okay? Yes, Freya said. Lassa was paying much more attention to her since the fight. She wasn't used to it, and she didn't like it. She wasn't used to it. Yes, Freya said. Freya replied. Lassa was paying much more attention to her since the fight. She wasn't used to it and didn't like it. Your first Krav Maga class will be Wednesday. Give it your best. It may save your life. Then afterward, Garbuglio will be Thursdays from now on. From now on, Garbuglio will be on Thursday nights. He moved someone to fit you in yesterday. Your first Krav Maga class will be on Wednesday. Give it your best. It may save your life. Okay. Don't look so miserable about it. Maybe you'll meet some nice boys there. If nothing else, at least they'll be fit. Now, the pendulum of discomfort had swung fully to Freya. She couldn't wait until Lasse was gone, and silently she was glad she probably wouldn't be home tonight. When Lasse was gone, she looked at the clock. 9 a.m. 12 hours until she could go back to sleep. Boom. That's good. All right, so I think that's a chapter. How long do we have? 8:46. We can reread through the entire fucking chapter. Let's do it. So, chapter 13. So this would be. Let's find the date also. 12. This is November 8th, so this would be November 9th. It's a very short chapter. The next morning, Freya woke up early as the first rays of dawn were prying through her window. One of the things I think is going to happen is we're going to have to include in the book potentially both Thanksgiving and Christmas, which are not currently written into it, because we're going to get a real time scale. Oh, and in fact, we have to. So Christmas, I think, is at the very end of the book. So we're going to have to. We're going to have to make this all fit in. We don't have as much time to work with as we want. There are constraints within the story to make certain things happen. But hopefully I can make it work out. So the next morning, Freya woke up early as the first rays of dawn were prying through her window. They're not really prying through her window. Yeah, prying through a window is cliche. Let's do shot through her window because I want the callback to anytime we talk about a window in this book, it must be broken at some point. The next morning, Freya woke up early as the first rays of dawn shot through her window. They reflected off the emerald leaves of Yggdrasil and painted her ceiling green. She stared upward and watched the blotches of light shift as the sun rose. She stared upward and watched the blotches of light shift as the sun rose. She needed to pee. Freya needed to pee, but she didn't get out of bed. It was too early. She didn't want to leave her room until Lasse went to work. So, if it's 2029, what time is dawn? So this year, we're about there. It's about like 7 a.m. All right, that's fine. It's not gonna 6:30 in the morning. Okay, it's 6:30. Did she really spend an hour fucking around with the router? Yeah, I think that's fine. It might be a little different in 10 years, but we're gonna have to deal. It was too early. She didn't want to leave her room until Lasse went to work. A thread was fluttering at the back of her mind, and she tugged at it, tumbling into the ghost of a dream. She dreamed of going blind. The world had slowly retreated into an indistinct blur, and all went dark. She was left sliding through the void, anticipating a crash. The falling in place feeling had jolted her awake, and she immediately would regret waking up. Oh yeah, wake and bake. Oh Lord. She wondered why she dreamed of going blind, or why she was dreaming at all. Was the Lunesta becoming less effective? That had to happen at some point. She would build up a tolerance. Freya shrank from the thought. What if she stopped being able to sleep? Everything was so hard already. Freya looked over at the desk where the Lunesta bottle was and noticed her laptop was missing. She blinked, wondering what had happened. Had someone broken in and taken it? It was an old MacBook. She hardly ever even used it. Everything was on her phone. Resting in the center hole of a scratched-up Robert Johnson CD. The mystery was enough to get her out of bed. She turned on the light and looked around the room, wondering what had moved it. The mystery was enough to get her out of bed, and she turned on the light and looked around the room, wondering if she had moved the laptop or... I'd forgotten about it. There was no sign of the MacBook. It wasn't in her room, and now she really had to use the bathroom. Afterward, she found Lasse at the kitchen table with her lap. The mystery was enough to get her out of bed, and she turned on the light and looked around the room, wondering if she had left the computer in the living room and forgotten about it. It wasn't there, and now she really had to use the bathroom. Hey Siri, what's the weather today?
It's currently cloudy and 41 degrees in New York. Expect rain starting in the morning and cloudy skies in
Fuck.
the afternoon. Temperatures are heading up from 41 degrees to 51 tonight.
Suck a dick, Siri. The mystery was enough to get her out of bed, and she turned on the light and looked around her room. It wasn't there, and now she really had to use the bathroom. Afterward, Freya found out. Curiosity was enough to get her out of bed. That's much better. Curiosity was enough to get her out of bed, and she turned on the light and looked around the room. It wasn't there, and now she really had to use the bathroom. The mystery was short-lived. Lassa had taken her MacBook. She had it open on the kitchen table, and she was frowning at the screen. This is so slow, Lassa complained. No apology for taking her stuff would be forthcoming. No apology for taking Freya's stuff without asking would be forthcoming. Sorry, Freya said automatically, and Lassa shot her a look. I mean, it's just old. When was the last time you used it? I haven't turned it on since we got the new phone. I haven't turned it on since I got the new phone. Don't you need it for school? Freya shook her head. Well, something is wrong with the internet. It's really slow. I'm just checking to make sure you don't have a virus. Do Macs get viruses? Yes, it's just uncommon. If it's been off... If this has been turned off, it's not it. Yes, it's just uncommon. If this has been turned off, it's not the culprit. Let me see your phone. Freya went back to her room and got the phone, trying to remember if there was anything on it she didn't want Lassa to see. but she hadn't talked to anyone in almost a month. It had been over 3 weeks since the last email she'd sent to Betty, and she still hadn't gotten a reply. It was only as she was handing the phone over to Lassa that she realized there were about 100 pictures of the meteorite on the phone. It was only as she was surrendering the phone to Lassa that she realized there were about 100 pictures of the meteorite on the phone, and she struggled to come up with an explanation. But Lassa was only thumbing through the system preferences and checking the network settings, though. Yeah, we do need but. But Lassa was only thumbing through system preferences and checking the network settings. She didn't look at the pictures. It's not your phone. You barely use any data at all. It's not my computer or my phone. Someone must have broken into our network. Let me check the router. Do you need me for anything? Freya asked, and Lassa shook her head. Freya showered, brushed her teeth, and got dressed. Okay, so this is a note. We always want to know where the star ball is at all times. Real talk. Oh, okay. When she came out, Lassa was still frowning at the screen. Someone broke into our network and downloaded a ton of stuff. This is a list of the connected devices. Lassa turned the MacBook screen towards Freya. She was logged into the router. She was logged into the router interface and looking at the list of active DHCP leases. Freya saw entries for Lassa's work computer, Freya's laptop. There were entries for Lassa's work computer, Freya's MacBook, and each of their phones. There was an entry for Sony TV also. The final row was a MAC address with no device name. In the data transferred column, it said 262.75 gigabytes. Nothing else on the list had used even 2 gigabytes. As they watched, the number climbed to 263 and kept going. Lassa tried to launch the calculator on Freya's laptop, but was taking a while to load, and finally the cursor turned into the spinning beach ball. With an annoyed sigh, Lassa pulled out her phone and started typing in numbers. We have a 10 megabit line. That can download 4 gigs an hour. It looks like they've been maxing out the line for about 3 days. Why would they do that? It's probably some kid. Why would they do that? Freya asked, glad Lassa didn't think this was her fault for once. Why would they do that? Freya asked, feeling relieved. For once, Lassa didn't think something was her fault. It's probably some kid in the network running torrents. Can we see what they're downloading? Lassa poked around for a bit in the router's web interface. I don't know if there's a place to see that. Maybe the ISP knows. I'm going to change the wireless password to something stronger. Lassa changed the Wi-Fi password to an unwieldy string of characters and reconnected all their devices. Then she logged back into the router, and the weird entry was gone. She browsed on her phone a bit. It seemed much faster. I guess that's it. I'll contact the company just to make sure we're covered in case someone is doing something illegal. Do you have to tell your work? Freya asked, watching Lassa closely. Her mother blinked. The question made her uncomfortable. Freya had guessed correctly that the question would make her feel uncomfortable. Normally I would, but after the incident at your school, I don't need any more attention on me. It's probably nothing. We'll see what the ISP says first. How many more times do I have to see Dr. Garbuglio? Freya asked, quickly, trying... How many more times do I have to see Dr. Garbuglio? Freya asked quickly. Three more times if no more problems at school. I think we can stop then. I won't let him give you any drugs. Don't worry. Are you still sleeping okay? Yes, Freya replied. Lassa was paying much more attention to her since the fight. She wasn't used to it and didn't like it. From now on, Garbuglio will be Thursday nights. He moved someone else. From now on, Garbuglio will be on Thursday nights. He moved someone else to fit you yesterday. Your first Krav Maga class will be on Wednesday. Give it your best. It may save your life. Okay. Don't look so miserable about it. Maybe you'll meet some nice boys there. If nothing else, at least they'll be fit. The pendulum of discomfort had swung fully to Freya. She couldn't wait until Lassa was gone. Hopefully she wouldn't come back home tonight. When the BMW pulled out of the driveway, Freya looked at the clock. 9 a.m. 12 hours until she could go back to sleep. Okay, well, thank you for joining me. We got 2 chapters today. One was short, but one was a difficult Garbuglio chapter. And we're up to 97 out of 750 pages. So we made it almost like 17 pages today. I think we started at 81. Well, that'd be 16. You fucking retard. Actually 15 because we didn't actually make it to page 97. Like math. It's not my bag. Well, I want to thank everybody who did this. If you're just tuning in or on Periscope or Peniscope or whatever there, I do this every single morning. And if you want, you can be a part of the entire thing. If you offer like suggestions or edit or whatever, just make sure to let me know when I'm getting close to the end of this. And I'm going to put everybody who was helpful in the thank you section of the book. And you can call yourself whatever the fuck you want. I'm not going to dox anybody here. Yes, super helpful. We have on patreon.com, you can support the book if you'd like to help me pay for editing. Editing this book, which is what we're doing right now, but eventually we have to have a professional go at it. When publishers refuse to publish this book, it is going to cost me somewhere between $6,000 and $10,000 total to get this ponderous motherfucker edited and proofread. And we really want to do a good job of it. So yeah, shout outs to everybody tuning in. Thank you so much. And really enjoying this. I love that we are making progress. If you go to zachzyz.com/gravid, every single, so can your title be gay man? Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great title. Like only if I don't call myself that first. God, what if that was like your author name? Just gay man. That'd be fucking legit. All right. Enough of this horse shit. We'll get to it there. Thank you, everybody. And follow along on the webpage. I think the differential edits are really cool. You can really see that the stories are so much better when we're putting in this serious hard work every single day. All right, blood up.